Nigel Farage has well and truly smashed the Conservatives at this point. Polling has put them reliably in 4th place behind the Liberal Democrats, the Labour Party and Reform in first. Very consistently now, Reform are polling over 30%. So this is pretty impressive. And the next nearest challenger to Farage is the Labour Party on 22%, roughly around that sort of area. And so they're quite worried because Nigel Farage is parking his tanks on their lawn and saying, right, here's a few new economic policies that we're going to roll out. And the first one being a transferable tax allowance between married people in order to encourage them to have more children. And he's going to lift the 2-child limit on benefits, not because we support benefits culture, but in order to make having children easier for lower paid workers. Though he admits this is not a silver bullet. He's vowed to fully reinstate the universal winter fuel payment scheme, which I actually don't think is brilliant. It should be means tested, but obviously carrying on. And he's reiterated that Reform's manifesto promises to lift the income tax threshold to £20,000. Isn't it £12,000 at the moment?
12 and a half.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So if you earn £12,000, you don't pay tax. If you earn £13,000, now they start taxing you. So £13,000 enough to bloody live on.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. And you're taking 22% of that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But the 500 quid you're going to get, you're going to lose just over 100. So you're only better off by 400 quid.
Farage gave a Reform where they talked to the press.
Question and answer?
No, there's a
press conference.
Press conference.
Yep.
I don't know why that was not on the top of my head. Press conference, where he explained this, and he made fair point about it. This creates a benefits trap. So basically, if you're getting 16 grand a year, 20 grand a year on benefits, why would you go to work?
Yeah. And
there are people on benefits who may want to work, but don't have the choice because, of course, if you're getting 20 grand a year on benefits and you get a job and suddenly you're on 13, 14 grand, that doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely.
And it's such small amounts of money as well. It's insufferable. Anyway, so the point being, he's going to do that, and he's going to get his Doge unit set up. So he's going to cut government waste, scrap net zero, cancel the DEI agenda, and various quangos, which all sounds great. But the issue really isn't about the policies. I mean, whether he does any of this, whether it has any significant effect, whatever, who cares, right? The question, because that's a question for 4 years away, presumably. But the thing that everyone noticed is, oh wait, so this is a direct attack on Labour as the positioning Reform as being the party of the working class. And so basically, yes, it seems very clearly quite a wise strategy on Farage's part. He has absolutely bullied the Conservatives. He in fact called them a minor party now. Which is true. I mean,
percentage terms they are.
Yeah, if you're only on 16, 17, 18% of the polls, well, I mean, the Lib Dems are doing better than you are. And so now he's pivoting to annihilate Labour. And so this caused a lot of consternation in the Labour-supporting shitlib media. They couldn't understand how it is that Nigel Farage could position himself as a champion of the working class. Because, don't you know, he has a privileged background. Let's watch.
Ask voters, for example, whether Starmer or Farage makes the better Prime Minister, and Starmer wins comfortably, 44% to 20%.
Voters?
Narrow that down to working class voters alone, and the results have flipped. How is Nigel Farage, a privately educated son of a stockbroker who left school to become a trader in the City of London, reaching working class voters in a way that other politicians like Keir Starmer isn't? Keir Starmer, by the way, who did grow up working class. Dad famously was a toolmaker. Went to a state comprehensive. Made his living and his reputation not in the City of London, but as a human rights lawyer. What is Farage?
Exactly it. Exactly it. The very fact he was a human rights lawyer is enough to turn any working class person off. Really?
Wasn't his dad I'm sure I remember reading.
He owned his own factory.
He's a factory owner.
Yeah, he was a factory owner.
That's like saying
he was a businessman.
Friedrich Engels was working.
Just a rags to riches story. I don't know what you're talking about. Went to a comprehensive. Yeah, so as you can see, the libs at LBC are just like, I just don't understand this. How is it that they aren't choosing the robotic human rights lawyer over the charismatic, pint-swilling, cigarette-smoking nativist.
Yes.
And this, I just find this to be honestly hilarious. And this is the only stab at Nigel Farage they have is, well, you come from a relatively privileged background. And it's like, okay, they don't hate relatively privileged people. You must surely have that through your thick skulls at this point. You got Ollie Dugmore.
Oh, this is...
I love Ollie Dugmore because he's one of those people. He's a radical lib. He doesn't realise he's a radical lib, and he doesn't really understand the world around him because he's a radical lib. So let's watch Ollie here.
Is Nigel Farage of 10k a year Dulwich College a voice of the working class? Is Nigel Farage, former metals trader, a voice of the working class? Is Nigel Farage the leader of a political party that until very recently was just an incorporated business and had none of those mechanisms of internal democracy, a voice of the working class, bankrolled in fact by several billionaires, one of whom is the deputy leader? I think he's a millionaire, not quite a billionaire, Richard Tice, and says that property portfolios, a property business is steeped in his family's blood. Is that a voice of the working class? I would hesitate to say no, but also I would say in the question...
Hang on a sec, Ollie. But have you considered that is the voice of the working class, actually? This is the thing about the working class, that why would Ollie know anything about it? Because he's not working class.
Yeah.
He is a southern middle-class lib. Yeah. They don't know what they're dealing with. And what I love about all of this is they're like, well, the voice of the working class must surely come from the working class. This is the fundamental contention. As in, the only representation is formal, direct representation. As in, if you want someone working class to represent people, well, they have to be working class. It's like, yes, but you call that person a racist because his name is Tommy Robinson, and you put him in jail and you make sure that he's sidelined from any kind of public discourse, because actually the authentic voice of the working class sounds a lot like Nigel Farage, actually. It's
his beliefs, it's what he's saying,
it's his
what
loyalties.
It's his loyalties, his questions, how he's doing it. No one seemed to question the fact that Tony Blair, a son of a wealthy family who went to FETS, which actually was more expensive than Dulwich College, then went to Oxford, which was very expensive, and his group of individuals were very wealthy, who also then became a barrister and sat in the chambers with people who became MPs and even the Chancellor. All of that. And he was the voice of the working class.
Wow.
Gordon Brown, who followed the same route, was the voice of the working class. This was
the lie they were trading on. And this is the assumption that the people in the Labour Party would just be looking out for the working class. Yeah. And this is why the institution of Labour and the relationship that Labour has had with the North is completely hollowed out.
Yeah.
And so it's now essentially a legacy institution there that is being rapidly replaced by Nigel Farage, because Reform are basically the second party everywhere, where they're not the first party in the North. But again, like, look at the Southern lib who just can't understand it. Like, Ollie Dugmore is 100% a product of Blair's Britain.
Yes.
He is like the single degree owning, kind of retarded person who can list the things that the power structures tell him to list and thinks no further down that line.
There's an interesting respect in which this dynamic has kind of always been there. All the way back to the days of Disraeli and the high-low, the upper classes and the working man in an alliance against the middle class. Yep. Even, I mean, I don't think the left ever truly understood the appeal of Thatcher in the 80s, who was very popular with
Essex Man,
with working class voters.
Essex Man knew that he was going to get some.
Who actually, I mean, one of the things that I don't think they like, they keep on going on about the metals trader. This is a wide boy. They don't mind the idea of somebody who's done well for themselves, someone who's been upwardsly
boy done good.
You remember
the boy done good?
You remember the Led by Donkeys, where they're like, Nigel Farage made $1 million a year or something. They put it in Clacton. It's like, I didn't hurt Nigel Farage at all. But Essex Man isn't like, oh no, a rich person. No. Nigel Farage works for his money.
Yeah,
and partly this may boil down to having known poverty versus not having known it. Anybody who's known it will also know that actually, if you can get yourself out of it, it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
It's not a bad thing. And that was something that in the 80s the Tories under Thatcher were able to tap into, but Labour never quite understood.
Labour have just got the politics of envy.
Yes.
They expect you to be jealous of that person.
And I would go further in that, not only is it the politics of envy, but we also recognise in the working class that there were people who were in the establishment and members of the House of Lords, people who owned estates, who had more respect for this country and our history, and they sat in the House of Lords holding back the tide of the lefties who wanted to say that we support the working class, when actually they didn't. They support the Fabian Society's middle class, intellectual communist thinkers who wanted to just use the working class simply as voters and fodder.
As a bludgeon against the country.
And these people they removed from the House of Lords because I'm not saying that everyone in the House of Lords wasn't a decent, a great individual. But many of them, as we all know, in all classes of individuals, are bad people. But on the whole, they wanted to maintain the country, maintain the flag, maintain our history, support what we were, and hold it back in a proper conservative way. And a lot of working class, like my grandfather, are conservative.
Yes.
A conservative with small C's.
So there's an issue here that I think is worth pointing out. The working class, one of the things that makes because I mean, one of the things that people say was, well, they're very poor, and what we're promising them is money. Actually, we're going to have wealth distribution, but this wealth very obviously comes at the expense of something not physical to the working class, which is the integrity and honor and dignity of their own country writ large.
Yeah.
And it's actually a sort of there's a kind of emotional reliance that people have on this that the middle class have abandoned, which is why they're globalist anywhere people. And the working class somewhere people might say, yeah, it would be nice to have more money, but actually there's something special that we have that we don't want to just give up. And Ollie, being the globalist lib that he is, would happily throw this away for a slightly cheaper flight to Benidorm or something. Whereas the average working class person hears Nigel Farage and thinks this is about the country itself.
And they would criticise us, saying, "Here, what do you know about the working class?" But I was born.
Well, my family
I grew up
working
there.
class.
My family still is. We understand it more than that type of person would ever get it. Just because I've done well in life doesn't mean that I've forgotten where I've come from and how it's gone and how it still impacts them today. And that frightens them more than anything else. They absolutely despise people who, from the working class, who do well, who don't comply with their agenda.
I just want to come back to the high-low alliance as well, because I think people in the middle class forget that the working class do not hate the upper classes.
No.
They like them, actually.
Yeah.
And this is why someone like Boris or Jacob Rees-Mogg has a lot of natural popularity.
It's also worth kind of emphasizing for viewers, it's not just that they're kind of toffs or something. If your family is a big landowner, it means you have a stake in the land, and therefore you care about it. This goes back to our old property rights argument. You're a monitor for it, so you're a self-interested monitor because you have a stake in that place doing well, in a way that the anywhere person or the corporation,
absolutely,
or the international lawyer or whatever, they don't have a stake in the same way.
Barrett Holmes, Taylor Wimpey, BlackRock, all those funding the bonds and the debt to be able to buy up the nice piece of countryside and build a whole load of houses on it because it's having to fulfill population growth, have no stake other than a financial remunerative stake. And yet, that's all that matters to
Ollie
them.
finds himself 100% on their side.
I don't know if we could be getting to this now, but I think it's important to stress, though, that Labour internally, that there's a guy who works for Starmer called Morgan McSweeney. He is like the Dominic Cummings of Labour. He gets this. There's a strategy he's using called Blue Labour. He gets everything that we just talked about, where they're going to go for small c social conservatism. This is why they went so big on the Island of Strangers speech and the immigration talk. What's fascinating, and I kind of look at this almost like kind of Football Manager, is as the Labour are strafing right on immigration and signalling, right, we're listening to you, you can trust us again, Reform are actually doing something very clever. It's very, well, I don't know about clever. They're doing.
I think it is clever.
They're doing something interesting. They're going, right, well, we're going to strafe left in a way that you'd never expect us, because everybody thinks of Farage as a Thatcherite, and he's actually going to go, no, because the weakness for Labour when it comes to the working man is actually the neoliberal part of the Blairite agenda, which is still there, of course.
But I would say to you,
BlackRock part,
you're talking about reform as though they're doing this now. I was there in the National Executive Committee and working with Susan Evans and Patrick O'Flynn in the 2015 manifesto doing exactly this. We'd started to move along that way. We started the strategy. He's only continuing the strategy that ourselves. And also, to be fair on Paul Nuttall was persuasive in Nigel. Nigel wasn't going to go down this line at all then.
Because he is, in his heart, a Thatcherite. And
yes.
Everyone knows this. But the point you're bringing up here is I think, genuinely the important inflection point that will decide who wins in this strategy, which is the credibility of the person who is taking up the alien position. As in, will Starmer be able to persuade people that actually inside of him does beat the far right heart of an Enoch Powell, and compared to Nigel Farage's, actually, no, I do have that noblesse oblige that believes that the wealthy should pay their fair share and the tax should be redistributed down to the working classes. Which one will end up being more persuasive? Now, I don't think either of them actually believes the position that they have adopted here. This is not Nigel Farage's natural inclination.
No.
Is he more likely to be persuasive over Starmer, though? And I think that the answer is probably yes.
Probably yes, I would agree
Because
with that.
just a quick thing, like Starmer's strafe to the right has been very hard, very public, very well telegraphed. Everyone in the country knows what he's doing, and nobody is persuaded by it. This has not helped his polling at all.
No. Right, I mean, for my sins, I've been watching Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell.
The most accurate predictions.
I'm always interested to see what they're saying. And to be fair, Alistair Campbell made quite an astute point, which he said, like, yes, Starmer's right to go after immigration, but he shouldn't have done it in this way, because going on the rhetoric, according to Campbell, plays into Farage's wheelhouse.
Yes.
What he should have done, according to Campbell, is show and not tell, i.e., just post the results. We've done this many deportations, immigration's come down this much, but don't make a song or dance about it or make it a game of rhetoric, because you're always going to lose that against Reform, who no matter what you do, it's not going to be good enough. And the way Campbell said it is that Starmer set up a situation where he's saying to the country, judge me against this. And the country is going to, I mean, we are all going to judge him against that.
And I get that. I think there is something very solid to say about actions speak louder than words and produce this evidence. But again, if you're thinking about the way that the Labour Party were moving on this, in particular on immigration, he knew that net migration was going to come down. The OBR had told him, I indicated it in my own research, that it was going to come down. So he knows in the lifetime of Parliament, net migration will come down. He also knows that the Conservative Party had made changes that would impact legal migration. The question is whether he really deportations, and this is the part of the research that needs to be pushed in, because at the moment, deportations is not about those who've come across on the boats. It's still about those who are criminals and those who are being offered money to leave voluntarily. He's not deporting
something like
people deliberately.
3/4 of the deportations have been people who have voluntarily left.
Yes.
So.
But to go back to the tactics,
just a quick thing on that. So the issue, though, is this is very much the rhetorically parking your tanks on the other person's lawn.
Yes.
Because again, I don't think anyone actually thinks that Nigel Farage will do the things that he's actually saying here, or at least really holds it in his heart. If he does it, it'll be to the bare minimum extent, because otherwise it would look bad if he did nothing on this or something like this, which is what everyone can see that Starmer is doing. And so the question is one genuinely of intent. Starmer is trying to rhetorically take control of this area because he sees it's a very strong place that Farage is on, and he's obviously been given permission to do it by Tony Blair or something like that. But everyone can see that in his heart, he's still trying to sell us out. He's desperate. He's a human rights lawyer, as we're told. Whereas Farage might actually do something positive on the social issue as well as the economic issue. And if the economic issue comes about, that's a bonus, but that's not really what Farage's appeal to the working class is.
Well, what I'm interested in here is, because this is like a really unprecedented tactical,
it's interesting.
Really interesting tactical situation. What I would say is that the person who's going to lose this is the one who, because at the moment within Labour, Starmer's being, there's the hard left who've been dealt with, but there's also this faction of the party called the soft left, basically the old Brownites and a few people who aren't comfortable with this direction. The worst thing Starmer can do, now he's set on down this road, is to U-turn or back off. He has to walk the walk, talk the talk.
If he walks back on any of this, he'll be crushed from within.
And then the same, I would say, is true for like now he's gone down this road. I'm not sure if he can then go back to like, oh, actually, I was just joking. I'm still into the neoliberalism, guys. And I do think, because it's a long road.
It's less dangerous for Farage.
2029, it's quite a long road.
So just a quick thing on that. So the main issue, I think, is not economic, that is driving people to Farage. Farage wasn't, in fact, promising anything economic until literally yesterday, right? Yeah. What Farage is promising is a moral realignment of the state towards the interests of to be loyal to the British people, right? That's what Farage is promising ultimately, and that's what Starmer is trying to promise with his pivot to, oh yeah, I'm going to deport all the Browns. This is not fundamentally a primary weakness for Farage. Farage has got already the majority share, the largest share of the polls anyway. So what Farage is trying to do is essentially push the Labour Party fully off the cliff. So even if he backs down on his economic questions, well, not good, right? If you're a northern sort of economically socialist Labour voter. But your other option is globalist, foreigner-loving party of Islam who wants to trans my children. Yeah, they're not winning this back. That's a much more fundamental moral issue that they have failed on, that Nigel Farage has won on.
There is an element also of what's happening in the United States. So clearly, we talked about it very briefly, is that Trump had used this kind of tacking towards MAGA voters and the working class of America. And for him, economically, the argument just very simple: the concept of a tip not being taxed. Everybody knows that's the lowest end. Yep. Of where you get in the United States. So Farage is in a way trying to copy that kind of usage of policy to attach himself even more firmly with the working and the lower middle class, because this isn't just about him getting out of the D's and E's. He wants to get in C1s and C2s. And this is an opportunity to say, I can branch out into those areas as well.
Just to push back a little bit, I'm imagining a scenario where Labour, one, don't allow an election all the way till 2029, and two, they stay the course. Now imagine if Starmer has been posting the way he's been posting for the next 2 years. It will be much more difficult because the longer they stay in this kind of mode where they're trying to appeal to, us and our friends, the further away the memory of the transing the kids and all the things that you just talked about will get. So I'm not saying it will
maybe
deliver a win for them. I'm just saying that's their route to victory.
I don't
convince the public that Labour have changed. Basically,
I don't have the link up, but recently, YouGov on their approval tracking for individual politicians, Keir Starmer is at 15% approval rating with a negative of -50, and the negative has just been getting higher every single day. It's been how many weeks now since he came out with his Rivers of Blood speech? 2 weeks, and it's done nothing, absolutely nothing. Things are just getting worse. And so Keir Starmer, I think the unfortunate position he's in is he's just completely polluted the well with good faith with the British public generally, and now he just looks like a liar. So now he looks like a cynical, pandering politician rather than anyone who's doing anything that he genuinely believes to be the right thing.
He's trying to solidify a certain area of, I think, of the middle class university student voting or a group of people, and also work towards those that say he is a world leader. And normally, we were talking about this briefly before we came on, when you are in trouble politically at home, a leader tends to look abroad. Thatcher had the Falklands, Tony Blair had the Iraq War. What you had with Starmer is because he set off so badly so quickly, he's ended up trying to do Ukraine, the trade deal with the US, the trade deal with India, the trade deal with the EU, and none of them are shifting the dial at all. We're not seeing him as a great European leader or a great leader on the world stage. We're seeing someone actually is selling us out. He sold us out on Chagos, sold us out in the European Union. The deal with India is not as good as everybody is saying with. And clearly what happened in the United States was only a reduction in the tariffs that were already being hit by. So he's also thrown out a big card very early. He's thrown out his diamonds.
So we, just for the time's sake, I'm afraid we have to carry on. But I think you're completely correct. And we'll come back to that at some point if you want.
Well, I mean, if Starmer's a busted flush, the plan B for Labour would to be to get in Angela.
Oh, yeah.
And then it would be a different proposition.
I think so.
She's properly a council estate mum.
Yeah.
Then you could
Sorry,
say...
a council great grandmother.
Anyway, that's a different conversation.
It is. Anyway, so Nigel Farage, of course, hit back saying, don't care about your opinions. Basically, not only are you not members of the working class, but you're also selling out the country, so piss off. Yeah. Which, fair. So we've got some polling from the Red Wall, the northern former Labour voting seats. And yeah, this isn't good for Starmer. He's down to 24 when asked who would be the best Prime Minister, 24% said that. Nigel Farage at 27%, Boris Johnson at 12%. No, and this is a very quick thing. People, and Farage really needs to pay attention to this. Yeah. If Boris Johnson comes back, Boris Johnson will crush him.
Yes.
Because whether you like Johnson or not, the majority of the people are not politicos who understand that Boris Johnson betrayed the country more thoroughly than any Labour politician ever did. And just with such speed and just enjoyment, honestly, the way that they did it.
They should be hammering that every day.
Yeah, they should. Farage really should.
I think it's interesting that you see Rupert Lowe at 6%.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. You've got Corbyn at 9%, you've got Badenoch at 8%, but then you've got Rupert Lowe at 6%. Which is
who's not known.
Twice generic.
Yeah,
well, we're told Rupert Lowe's not known.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I don't know, man. I'm saying the online right, can spontaneously manifest 6% in a poll.
Yeah. I mean, what happens when he actually gets a team behind him?
What happens when he gets
fully
a party?
promoting and fully promoting himself across?
He's creeping up on Badenoch, the current leader of the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
With northern voters, so that's pretty bloody significant. But then I was only going to mention at the side. But then we also have with young people, where Starmer's on 22%, Corbyn's on 15%, Farage's on 14%, and then Lowe's on 11%.
11%. Okay.
More popular than Rayner in tying with Boris Johnson.
Now that's interesting because that will. I would have thought that has to be unprompted. Because
they were just
Lowe is not like a media star name across lots of.
So they think
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting to see those figures up there.
Yeah, isn't it just?
Who are these 20-year-olds who like Keir Starmer? I don't believe it.
No.
I find it really hard to believe.
University students.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're the ones who like him.
Manchester, Birmingham, London, you name it.
Okay. But that is fascinating. And like for an independent backbench MP who's been there for 6 months.
Yeah.
Rupert Lowe polling organically at 6% and 11% with young people.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting thing.
That is.
My advice to Rupert, don't join the bloody Tories, mate.
No.
You don't need them.
No.
Like, look where Badenoch is. Look where Jenrick is. Yeah.
Jenrick is really working hard as well.
I know. I actually feel bad for Jenrick because he seems like a fairly decent fellow and he is, as I say, working very hard.
Yeah.
And it is not paying off. And honestly, I think it's just, and this is not a nice thing to say, but you're not charismatic. Politics is about vibes. Sorry. I hate to say it. But anyway, so this is interesting. So basically, it looks like Nigel Farage is living rent-free in Keir Starmer's brain. And you may remember a couple of weeks ago where Keir Starmer asked Nigel Farage for a debate, which is a fascinating turn of affairs because the Prime Minister asking just an MP, debate me, bro, reveals a profound weakness in Starmer's own position. Yeah. As in, I really accept that Nigel Farage is the locus of moral authority and political power in the United Kingdom. And I think that I can take something away from him by crushing him in a debate. Yeah. Says the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Says someone who's got less actual charisma than actually the former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Nick Clegg, who said exactly the same and then was completely embarrassed in the debate versus Farage.
You know what he wants to do, don't you? He wants to go on there and surprise everybody with how based he is.
Yes, he does.
Very interesting scenario for us.
But the problem is that Farage can always tactically go further to the right. Everyone knows, and this, this is what McSweeney must know.
This is what we talked about. This, for me, is the ideal scenario.
Oh, yes,
we can have this.
Great, yeah.
Until 2029, Keir Starmer trying to prove to the country,
it's fantastic.
He's based.
Yeah.
That's perfect because it means that we may get more
I'm with
stuff.
You, man.
But the dialectic
down with the kids.
The dialectic has been generally very much favourable to the right at the moment. Anyway, it's who can outcompete each other on deportation. Anyway, we are running low on time. But Nigel Farage hit back and said, "Okay, yeah." I challenge you to a debate in a working men's club.
I love it. I love it. That is superb.
Very smart.
Knock you off.
Very, very smart.
Knock you off.
Yeah, exactly. Farage will absolutely. You see, Farage is enjoying.
Yeah, he is now.
Farage would absolutely crush him there. Keir Starmer would have to basically go out with a swastika on his arm to persuade anyone of his right-wing credentials. This is not something I think Keir Starmer could do.
To me, this is my favourite period in British politics.
It's
possibly since
good.
Brexit. It's so much fun. I love it.
It's good. But the point is, you can see the profound weakness in Keir Starmer's position and the fundamental strength of Farage's. Everyone knows that the average working man would rather, because again, this is all very much vibes based.
Farage has got his old UKIP tie on.
He does. Who do you think the average working man would rather spend the evening with in a pub?
Oh, it'd be definitely.
No one has any question.
I might have my criticism.
Yeah, I've got plenty of criticism
for Nigel Farage, but the ability to
this is his strong
laugh
suit.
and joke in a pub with people and talk to them in a very similar way to Boris could do. Absolutely, it's where he's a killer.
This is 100% his strong suit, and there's no way that Keir Starmer can win this.
It's kind of an. I mean, I did, to go back to Alistair Campbell's point. If Starmer's got any strengths, it's basically his big weakness as well, which is the fact that he comes across as a robot with no emotions. Right?
Yeah.
So the way he could kill it is just by doing it, like we said. Don't get into all debates and rhetoric and so on. Just do it.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer seems to have forgotten he's not a politician.
No.
Because if he's going to get into these scenarios, I agree, Farage will have him on toast.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Starmer's just not human.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
in a normal way.
Starmer demanded the debate live on air. So now it's like, yeah, okay, let's do this.
I think the safest thing for Starmer...
You can't even turn it down now, Starmer.
Yeah, I think one of the safest is send one of the robots that you've got from Elon Musk, stick his face on it against Nigel Farage, and that will do better.
But you are right. Starmer's a man of process, so get processing. You know,
exactly.
Like that would, yeah, exactly. Again, he's forgotten he's not a politician.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.